we're back. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey,
Hey,
good.
good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Doing good. Doing good. A little rainy here today, but sun's gonna come out later, hopefully. So
I hope so. I have my fingers crossed. I want to do some rock climbing tomorrow, and I need the cliffs to dry. We had a lot of rain yesterday. I'm hoping for like little rain today.
I think we got over 2 inches here. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
got
it poured last night. Yeah.
Yeah, Ricky, how are you, dude?
Doing great. Just had some technical difficulties this morning, but other than that, doing well.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully we don't go on live, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Well, we have a very cool topic today. We're going to dive into. I think most people will resonate with it at some point. Whether it's for themselves or friend or family member. Yeah, well, I guess we'll just dive in. So, Ricky, what are we going to talk about today?
So today I wanted to talk about something that was kind of personal to myself, which was the whole skinny fat issue and whether you would like bulk or cut or whatever you should do first in order to try to get out of that skinny fat situation.
Okay. And do you think maybe to begin we should, because some people might not have heard the term skinny fat, maybe we should kind of define it or tell people what we think we mean when we're talking about skinny fat? Like what's your idea there?
So for me, I would say that my idea of skinny fat is someone that looks thin or may even look healthy, but they're not eating the correct way. They're malnourished, and really they have a lot of fat that's kind of packed in around their organs versus, the fat that's kind of, I think it's like, what is it, visceral fat?
Visceral fats around the organs, yeah.
Yeah,
and subcutaneous fat
versus the subcutaneous fat. Yep. So that's kind of my definition. I don't know if you have a better one.
Josh, did you want to add to that or?
I think of it somewhat literal in terms of like body fat percentage. So like we do, the caliper test on clients that may want that, a lot don't, and some do, but you could be a size, let's say a male could be a size 32 waist, but have 31% body fat.
Yeah.
Now you could have a male with a 34 waist and be 8% body fat, so that's sort of how I think about it. Same thing, male and female. Just because someone looks thin, whether it's in a bikini or regular day-to-day clothes, doesn't necessarily mean A, they're healthy, or B, they're lean. And so that's sort of how I think of that.
Yeah, so I'm right in line with you guys on this. I mean, it's kind of a funny term, skinny fat, because we usually think of skinny and fat as opposite things. But really lean and fat are kind of opposite things, but skinny doesn't mean that you're lean. So skinny just means that you have like like Josh said, it may be narrower waist, like just a smaller body size basically. But you can be at a small, skinny body size and still have a high body fat percentage. I like the example you gave, Josh, there. You can have a 30-inch waist, but be 20% body fat, or you could have a 34-inch waist and be 8% body fat. That person with the bigger waist maybe looks like a bigger person, but they're a lot leaner because they have a lower body fat percentage. So skinny fat really comes down to body fat percentage, and it's someone who's not a big person. We wouldn't call them obese. When they're wearing clothes, they look very, very trim. But if you measured the body fat percentage, it would actually be higher than it should be.
Yeah, and when we can flip that too and say, let's say a guy is walking around at 220, and so let's say that BMI chart there says that he should be 165, but he's 8% body fat and a monster, and that's like all over, right? Like it's pretty common. And same thing with girls. You have a lot of female athletes that are 155. Could be same thing, maybe 12, 14% body fat, or a female could be 120 at 35% body fat. And the girl that's 155 with a lot of muscle will look bigger with clothes on and or swimwear, but so she's not defined as skinny. But I would wager she's significantly healthier.
Yeah. Or to make it easy for listeners, just think of like skinny fat as you're small, you're skinny, so to speak, but you're kind of squishy. you're a little bit doughy. You know, you're not as lean. You don't have much muscle under there. Even though you are small and you do look good in clothes because you're trim and skinny, it's a squishy, doughy body type that's just not underdeveloped in muscle and a higher body fat percentage than you want.
You know, I think of it as not hard.
Yeah, there you go. All right, cool. We're all on the same page there. So just so the audience knows what we're talking about today, and we're going to try to talk about how to potentially get out of that condition of skinny fat. And skinny fat is something I would call a condition. It's even used in medical literature now. Skinny fat is a term that's like used in scientific journals and stuff. And it is important for your health. People who are skinny fat tend to have pretty poor health because that higher body fat percentage, even if you are small, is going to have negative health implications.
Ricky, what's your background with the skinny fat, body style? You said that you've been there, done that. Like,
yeah.
Tell us about that.
In some ways, I still think that I'm skinny fat, but no. Growing up, I would say in high school, in particular, or even my entire life, I didn't really have that well balanced of a diet. I think my diet consisted of steak and sugar growing up, and mostly like if we ate, like we thought a good meal was eating out, so like that would be like Taco Bell, McDonald's, all that stuff. Even though I was always naturally skinny, both my parents are naturally skinny, and I always thought, I was like, oh well, I'm skinny, so I'm fit. You know, I had tons of energy. I still played a lot of sports, did a lot of activities, but I was never really eating properly, just eating anything I wanted. And really, when I hit that age of 25, I noticed real fast that I couldn't eat whatever I wanted anymore.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was very abrupt. It was like, and I think it only slowed even further. So once I hit 30, it was like, wow, you really need to watch what you're eating, and you really need to start focusing on dieting. Otherwise, you're going to have very big implications. So yeah, so even up to 25 years old, I guess I was in good shape because, the Navy beat me up quite a bit, and a couple other things kind of forced me to, I guess, get in shape. But I always cared. I guess I always did care about working out and looking good, but I just never really focused on diet. And I always noticed that I was definitely doughy or soft, and I could never really get the physique that I wanted, and I could never really put on mass. I thought like, oh, I'm just a hard gainer. I can't gain any weight. I'm just doomed to be skinny my entire life. Yet, I may have been skinny, but I wasn't healthy.
Wow.
How much did you weigh? Because you say you're skinny. We're talking about like 16 to 18-year-old Ricky, something like that. You said high school?
16 to 18-year-old Ricky was about 110 to 120 pounds.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were really skinny.
Wow.
Okay. And you didn't have much muscle definition or like anything back then. Okay, so that was truly skinny fat then. 120, 130 pounds, and without any definition, especially on a guy, we can definitively say that you were skinny fat.
Yeah. And I mean,
cool.
I think when I went into the Navy, if you want to talk about that, I was 140 pounds.
Okay.
And I didn't really have much muscle definition then either.
All right, cool.
Wow. So, okay. So, what age did you go into the Navy?
So I was 21 or 22.
Okay.
When I went in.
140, and you were still saying higher level of body fat. And then, did the Navy change anything physically with you? I'm assuming it did.
Well, since the Navy's officer candidate school, it's called OCS.
Yep.
You have to eat with a war spoon. So anyone that's ever gone through it knows what the whole thing is. There's a whole way to eat, and you have to eat everything with a spoon, and it's a meticulous process.
Really? So explain that to us.
So let's just say this: if you get ribs, you're not eating, because it's like you're trying to eat ribs with a spoon, but you have to do it in a certain way where you only get one shot, where you have to like stick out your arm, you go down, you grab your spoon, you pick it up, then you scoop down, you just, whatever sticks to your spoon, and you pull back up, that's what goes in your mouth. Then you set that back down, and then you have to go grab a drink, and you drink. And it was like, in the beginning, it's grab and go. So it's like whatever they give you, that's what you get, and then you sit down. You don't get to talk. You don't get to ask for anything. It's just whatever they put on your plate, that's what you get. And over time, you get privileges to get more things. And that's when I started eating like beans with jalapenos, or I just would grab anything I could that I knew I could eat with a spoon. And so you find surprising ways to eat like apples or bananas, or you figure out ways to peel a banana with your spoon.
What is their thought process behind this? Why do they make you eat with a spoon, and in that specific way?
I was just thinking the same thing. What's the psychology with that?
Yeah, there's definitely got to be some sort of psychology thing associated
with messing with you. Like, I mean, in basic training and stuff in the Army, I know that initially they mess with you in a lot of ways. In the military, when you're like just getting in, is this like another one of those, like, I don't know, just
they call it militarization, which I call it hazing, but whichever whichever you want to call it.
Okay.
But the whole process or mindset behind it is, one, they made you do it with your left hand, which is most people's non-dominant hand.
Yep.
Cool.
And they also make you carry everything in your left hand.
Yep.
So that's basically all. They want to kind of get your motor functions to be like kind of ambidextrous. So they kind of want you to be good with both your left and your right. And if you say, well, what if you're naturally left-handed? Well, all of drill, so rifle drill and everything, is all forced to be right-handed. So anyone that does drill that's naturally left-handed has to convert to right-handedness for that.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be hard. I'm thinking, like, because I'm a hunter, like if I had to shoot left, I could learn that. I'm confident, but that would be difficult.
Well, they don't have to shoot right-handed. Shooting, you can do dominant. They find your dominant eye and they match you with your dominant hand for shooting. But drill is where you do all the movements with the rifle and all that stuff.
Okay.
And that's something supposed to be very synchronized. You guys are all in a line doing that together. So if one guy is left-handed, he throws off the whole.
Yeah, you'd be doing different maneuvers. It'd be all over the place. So that's why drill is right-handed. And I would say I'd rather be right-handed than left-handed. So because drill was hard.
Yeah. But, wow.
But on top of, the whole militarization and not eating much or eating whatever I could get, you're getting beat every day. And by beating, I mean, they're not physically hitting me, anything like that, but it's, they try to break you. So they take you to a point where you don't know your body's capable of these things. Like you think when you're doing push-ups, you're like, oh, I'm tired. No, you're not tired. You can still do more. And when you have someone screaming in your face and everybody else is dependent on you doing more push-ups, you find the strength to do more push-ups.
Yeah. That changed, would you say, because physically, obviously, we know that you had a heavy demand on your body throughout OCS, but your nutrition sounded maybe not dialed in. Would that be how to put that? Yeah,
I mean, I would even say during my time in the Navy, my diet still wasn't really dialed in, except for the fact I had to eat whatever they gave me.
Okay, so did you stay at 140 and somewhat soft?
I think during OCS I dropped back down to like 125 or 130.
Okay.
And then after that, I would say I went back up to 140 once I was out of that type of scenario.
It's still with the same body type.
Yeah.
Wow. Even with all the physical training and stuff that they make you do, you weren't seeing that you were gaining a little bit of muscle or any definition or anything like that? You were still like a pretty skinny fat, you would say? I would say I was still fairly skinny. I mean, I definitely noticed, because when I was training to go in there, I did a lot of lifting and I started researching more best practices. Like obviously I did everything myself. And I didn't always know the best thing to do. I kind of just followed whatever the fad was at the time. Yep. And, but I started making small progressions where I could see more like chest definition, maybe tricep definition. My biceps really never developed very well, and my abs never could see abs. But well, it's interesting, and we won't hit it at this point in the episode, but I think we're getting to a central theme with the whole skinny fat from a nutrition perspective. And so, I won't go down there yet, but so when you, so you get out of the Navy,
you're 140, 145, still not lean. Take us from there.
So that's whenever I had like 6 months off before I went into my PhD program, at Syracuse University. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So I kind of started researching more about nutrition. I started researching more about, I started doing more experimentation, I guess, with my own workout and my own diet at that time in order to see if I could change that whole process of skinny fat. And even though I didn't really know what it was called at that time, I still wasn't really aware. I just always thought, well, I'm skinny. I'm always going to be skinny. And that's just the way it is. And, but over time, as I realized, wow, like you said, diet does play a very big role in the whole skinny fat problem. I also, for my own personal experience, I think building muscle first is more important than cutting the fat, for at least my own experience. And I don't know what you guys think about the whole skinny fat issue there, whether you should cut first or bulk first. But yeah, I'll leave that still up to debate a little bit.
Yeah, well, let's keep going along with your that process for you, because at some point you had to have a turning point. So like you said, you started to educate yourself in school with some free time and whatnot. But at what point did A, your body change, and then B, how did you do it?
How did you do it? Yeah.
Man, you're gonna make me think this morning.
And how long was that process? Like if that started in, like, let's say your mid-20s that you started to reverse this, did you get out of the skinny fat in like a year, or was it like not for like 5 years? Or, I'm wondering what the whole process looked like too, what you did and how long it took.
I would say it definitely took a year of really focusing on my diet and focusing on building muscle. Okay. And it was definitely once I got into grad school, I had a little bit more free time. I guess maybe the second year of grad school. So that's why it's a little blurry, because my first year of grad school, I had to study a lot and I had to take classes and I had to do research. So it was like my time was very limited. I probably wasn't eating as healthy as I should. I wasn't sleeping as much as I should. So sleeping was another big part. And so the second year of grad school, I started to kind of like hack my sleep, kind of like what we talked about in one of our previous podcasts, where I really focused on that element. And I was like, all right, I'm done studying. I don't have to really take tests anymore. All I do is research. So I'm going to definitely start sleeping more. And then, I would say I also started looking into my diet, making sure that I was getting enough protein, because like you said, Andy, in some of our nutrition tips, it was, you think you're eating the right things and you think you're getting enough, but it's like you really find out how much carbs and fat you're eating versus how much protein you're eating.
Yep.
And so making sure I had, that 1-to-1, pounds of body fat to protein ratio. And I even say it's actually better to do your lean body mass. You don't have to eat the amount of protein for, whatever fat mass you have, but whatever your lean body mass, that's how much protein you should have at least. And then lifting in order to trying to develop muscle, or anything that you can do to build muscle, because muscle helps you burn fat. And also, if you end up cutting, if you do cut, then that muscle will show. And that's why I'd say it was really my second or third year of grad school where I had been trying to put on muscle after eating the right things, getting enough sleep to recover, and then deciding to cut after I felt I built enough muscle. So I think I got up to about 165 pounds at one point. And I mean, I was still fat. I'm not saying that it was all muscle, but I got up to like 165 pounds, and I think I cut down to 155. And that's when I noticed, oh, I can actually see some muscle definition.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm seeing a theme emerging here where, and this is right in line with what I think too, is if you're trying to resolve, if you're in this condition of skinny fat and you want to resolve it, to me, the two most important things are going to be, one, building muscle, because a skinny fat person is usually very underdeveloped in muscle. And muscle is an incredibly important organ. It's a signaling organ. It releases myokines. It communicates with the whole rest of the body. It's really important there. It's important for health as like a glucose disposal system. It's one of the biggest predictors of longevity and health and injury resistance and so on. It's your body's amino acid pool. If you end up needing like additional amino acids for, say, fighting an infection or, recovering from an injury or something like that. Muscle is incredibly important for health, and skinny fat people tend to be under muscled. So that's one thing I would say is building muscle is the first, not in chronological order, but like one step of the process. And the other one is eating a clean, healthy diet, which promotes a healthy body fat percentage. Not that you need to be ripped with a six pack or anything, but there's like a healthy body fat percentage that you want to be in. And those are the two things that are going to get you there, is building muscle and eating that clean, healthy diet that helps you achieve that lower or appropriate body fat percentage for you. Those are the two main things for resolving skinny fat in my eyes.
Yeah, because I mean, we talk a lot about, protein and carbs and fat, which are all like the macronutrients. But like what you were just saying, Andy, really eating a clean diet with, healthy single ingredient foods helps you get all those micronutrients. And really, it's those micronutrients that help facilitate all the different processes that happen in your body. And I think that's why it's important. You could eat McDonald's and get your macros in check, but you're going to be deficient on so many things that you need that it just doesn't work.
Not to mention that you'll be taking in a lot of things that are going to work counter to your health. If you're eating McDonald's, then you're eating a lot of vegetable oils that have been heated at high temperatures, and cooking French fries and stuff. You're going to be probably drinking soda or McDonald's milkshakes or whatever people get at McDonald's these days. I don't know. I haven't been there in 25 years, so I don't know, but
I mean, they still sell Big Macs and chicken nuggets. So
you're putting a lot of things in your body that are going to work against your health and promote all sorts of problems down the line. So, yeah.
And I think too, like what we're saying, we all agree on needing a base of muscle mass, right? To fill the void in terms of it's either fat or muscle, right? So the more muscle we have, but we need a nutrition protocol to supplement, to help assist muscle growth. So you can be strength training and lifting hard and whatnot, but getting, let's say, lower protein or inadequate nutrition, and you're not going to see the muscle growth like you could if you were doing both simultaneously.
And like Ricky touched on, probably one of the biggest for people who are skinny fat, probably one of the biggest things for them is upping their protein intake. With the people that I see and talk to, it seems that the people who are in the skinny fat category, including myself, because I have a similar story to you when I was as a teenager, but they tend to drastically undereat protein, which is going to work against them in terms of body fat percentage, but it's also going to prevent them from building the muscle that they need to overcome the skinny fat condition. So that's one of the biggest tips, is trying to get that protein. I talk to people who eat like 40 grams a day, and we need to get that up to 100, 120, somewhere in that range for most people. There's a variance, but most people drastically undereat protein, and that's a huge lever that can really turn this around for anyone who's skinny fat.
Andy, with your journey with that, was it similar in terms of the awakening with needing more strength training, cleaner diet? Was it similar?
Yeah. So for me, if you looked at me in high school, if you looked at me with clothes on in high school, you'd think I was like super healthy because I'm wearing small sized clothes and I looked very lean and trim. But if I took my shirt off in high school, you wouldn't see any muscle definition or anything like that. I was that doughy sort of like soft body type. I probably weighed about 135 pounds in high school. For me, my diet in high school was terrible. I ate pretty much, my breakfast every day was like Pop-Tarts and a can of Pepsi. And then, lunch was Doritos and some more Pepsi and, whatever. Like I ate like crap, like most high school kids do. So I wasn't supporting a healthy body fat percentage via what I was taking in nutritionally. But on top of that, my activity in high school, I was a very active person, which is, you know, if you looked at my diet, you should probably be like, oh, he should be obese, but I wasn't. I was skinny, and that's because I was very active. I was a cross country and track runner. But the issue there is I wasn't doing any resistance training. You know, when you're running cross country, you're running whatever 20, 30 miles a week. Same thing with track, you know, and there's no lifting weights, there's no resistance training, body weight exercises, any of that sort of thing. So I was promoting fat gain and kind of a higher body fat percentage with a poor diet. And then although I was burning off a lot of it and staying trim, I wasn't promoting any muscle gain through any sort of resistance training. So yeah, that was all through high school. And then it wasn't until I was about 18, 19, 20, somewhere around in that, like as a senior in high school is when I got into weightlifting, and that changed everything for me. Weightlifting is where I started, and within the first couple months of actually like doing some resistance training, I saw that I was starting to develop some muscle, which gave my body a nicer shape. And then at the same time, because I was getting into lifting and sports performance, I started to get interested in health. I started to research diet and realized that a lot of the things that I was eating were, you know, high sugar and junk food and so on. I learned the importance of protein and whole foods and so on. And as I started to transition my diet to a healthier one, those two changes, like I've already mentioned, the resistance training and the cleaning up my diet caused me to build a little more muscle, fill out and have a nicer looking physique, and also a very much healthier one and a better performing one. And then also it reduced my body fat percentage. Probably by the time I was 21, 22 years old, I was at basically the same body that I am now, which is like 8% body fat, maybe something like that. And an adequate amount of muscle, you know, a healthy amount of muscle. And I've just maintained that for the last 20 years. You know, I've got the same body now because I've continued through the last 20 years to resistance train and eat a clean, healthy diet.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, skinny fat's a real thing. Like back then I wouldn't have known that I was skinny fat. I hadn't heard that term. It wasn't until I started resistance training and cleaning up my diet that I saw the transformation. And I can look back at old pictures of myself in high school and go, oh, wow. Like I was small. I was like 130 pounds. Now I'm 165. But I don't know, squishy. That's the word I'll use, I guess. There was no muscle definition, nothing to, you know,
now, how did you
get my body into shape?
Yeah. Now, how did you figure out, I guess, the process of working out, like resistance training? You know, there's so much information out there. Did you like right off the bat just figure out what worked, or did you have to try? Did you have someone that mentored you, like someone that was resistance training before?
No, I got really lucky. I had a small group of friends in high school. There was maybe like 4 or 5 of us who all decided to start working out at the same time. We were basically like seniors in high school, just starting our senior year. And one of my friends, I don't know, maybe he started a few months before us. He's like told us like, I started working out, and we noticed that he was getting a little muscle, and it was like, oh, that looks cool. Like I want to do that too. So we all started working out together, and I still remember it was because back then we're talking about like the late 90s, the bench press was like what every teenage boy cared about. So there was this program, and it's probably still, if you Google muscle media 50 pounds in 50 days or whatever, I think that was the name of the program. It was supposed to increase your bench press by 50 pounds in 50 days. So it was a very bench press heavy program. But in any case, we just followed that for the 2 months, and 2 months of resistance training. Thankfully, the program was built out to be, it was fairly intelligently programmed. It completely neglected the lower body. But I mean, at least we were like pushing weights Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We had like kind of a split of push, pull and stuff, you know, so it was fairly well balanced. I was doing things like rows and pull downs and things, you know. And yeah, just dabbling in that resistance training. The nice thing is when you're a high school boy, your body is primed to grow if you do almost anything resistance wise. So I was able to see, even though it might have not been the most intelligent programming on the planet, doing it consistently for 2 months brought about the results that excited me as a young boy. Like I could actually see some muscle on my body finally, and kind of gave me the encouragement to keep learning from there. So yeah, that was the impetus. As far as the nutrition aspect goes, I started with the weight training, but then I started to wonder like how nutrition could support that and so on. And so I started reading more like muscle magazines and things like kids do. And eventually, like within a year, I started diving really deep into the whole nutrition rabbit hole. And I got super interested in just health in general and trying to have the healthiest body that I could from my cells to my tissues to my organs and the whole body and everything. Mm-hmm. And I just went on a deep rabbit hole for the next 20 years. But yeah, it was pretty much self-learned, reading a lot of books and blogs and things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, Andy, that you mentioned seeing a picture of yourself and how that brought you back to like, oh, that's what I was, When we were talking last week, the three of us, and I had said that I've been fairly lean my whole life. Just a lot of that's just natural, but because I did eat like shit all through school, high school, college, the whole deal, and I was lean. But there was a point, a small window from 2005 to 2007, where I remember seeing a picture of me during that time period. I was renovating a bathroom, and I just had shorts on. And I remember seeing that picture, and I had at least double the body fat that I had now, and I was probably 10 pounds heavier. But when I think of that time period, what happened was I got out of college. I was way less active. Mm-hmm. I had a cubicle job at the time. I was eating very poor whole wheat pasta, Alfredo, cheese sauces, pancakes, the whole deal wasn't good. And I was not working out, consistently at all. And that was sort of and I was drinking alcohol every weekend. And so that period and I guess like a lot of people go through this where we're searching, we're discovering ourselves, fresh out of college, new life, new car, whatever. I was not what I am now at all. And so someone, let's say that for the first 21 years was genetically lean and had it somewhat lucky-ish, you can still screw that up.
Yeah.
And I did. In that picture, I doubt I can find that, but it would be interesting for you to see. And so what happened was in 2007, I found CrossFit and paleo. That's when the whole thing changed.
Now that came pretty late for you because 2007, I mean, you graduated high school, what, in 2000 or 99 or 2001? So we're talking, this is way past your college days when you.
2001 to 2005 was college. Ate like shit, lifted a lot of weights and was active, so looked reasonable.
Yep.
And was, very, very.
You were adjusting one side of the equation. You at least were lifting and you had the muscle, but you were still eating like shit in that period.
Well, I had the muscle because I was eating lots of protein shakes, but then you throw that in with bad sleep, alcohol, and all that, you get sort of a mishmash of that. It was then but then 2005 to 2007 was not a good period. It was like I said, I was sitting at a desk. I worked for Hartford Insurance, and that was just a total body killer sitting. And I did not on a consistent workout plan. I would run, do 5Ks, do some stretching, do some bench press, sort of that hybrid of like, what am I doing? But then I found, and I forget how it was at work because I just searched the internet a lot. I was so bored.
Hartford Insurance is not going to be a future sponsor of this podcast.
No, that's fine. So in 2000, it was late 2006, early 7, I was doing jujitsu in Liverpool, Thai jujitsu. They're still open. It's sort of the lineage to where I am now at Dojo 1. They were talking, I only did it for, I think, 8 months at the time, and then I moved back from Syracuse to Vernon. But so they were talking about a program there that was making everyone puke. And I was like, what is that? And so it was CrossFit. And then like Andy said, you were sort of like addicted and you just dove deep from there.
Yeah.
That transformed my life. Like not just CrossFit, right? Just the whole mindset and the community and the goals and the eating and the paleo. And I was reading all these journals and magazines, and I just dove in deep. And from 2007 onwards, I've never looked back. And the body went like, I'm where you are, Andy, probably 8%, 165.
Yeah.
But I was probably 15, 16. Not what I wanted to be.
I wonder, Josh, when did you start resistance training? Like, were you doing that even like middle school, high school? Like you've lifted weights and stuff for quite a while, longer than I did. That's for sure.
Yeah, I had a significant teacher that had a huge impact on my life. Matt St. Peter. He was my English teacher as a freshman.
Yep.
And me and probably 5 to 10 other guys really got involved in the weight room scene. So instead of eating lunch, we would work out, and then we would work out after practices after school. And we worked out a lot, and it was very typical bodybuilder: squat, deadlift, power clean, bench press, pull up, and then cable machines. We did hours of that. And then we were like weight room attendants in high school. We were just junkies, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I competed in the Empire State Games in Olympic weightlifting in 10th grade. I had almost no experience doing Olympic weightlifting, but Matt St. Peter came up to me, and I think it was one other guy, Matt Stillman at the time. And he said, there's a competition this weekend, we should go. And I said, well, great, we can lift weights. And we were there, and everyone's wearing like Olympic weightlifting suits, and they're all decked out. I'm like, what are they doing? What is the snatch? Like, I had no idea, and we got killed. But it was just that whole process of like being immersed into people that were like counting reps, counting weight. We had a leaderboard. All of that was a huge, huge impact into who I am today.
So I mean, the big thing that transformed all of us was this transformation in our lifestyle to like this new health focus, and both aspects though, like getting interested in both training or being active in some way, but resistance training for the most part, and then eating healthy. We all kind of went through that period of we didn't do any of that stuff, and then we started doing it, and that just would turn the whole ship around.
Yeah, but some of us, it took a lot longer than others. So I think some people lucked out and had good mentors and things like that. And me, I guess I just tried to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And I kept messing up. I just kept messing up until I finally figured it out.
Well, when we talk about mentors, Ricky and Andy, it's very interesting, like belonging to a community of like-minded individuals, and that's where our gym comes into play, and I'll plug that for sure. Like whether it's the in-person coaching or remote, having at least one person that wants more for you physically and mentally and pushing you and giving you advice, and you're
already walks the walk
Yeah.
for the things that they're trying to get you to walk along the path with them on. Yep.
Yes. And so people listening to this may look at the three of us and say, oh, you've got, this body and this capabilities, this and that. I want to remind everyone that, and I'll speak for myself here, I'm surrounded by this all the time. My gym's in my front yard. That's what I do for a living. And if I'm not in the gym, I'm on a computer coaching people. When I'm not doing those, I'm at jujitsu with freak athletes. Like, I'm just around, and my sister, one of my best friends, she's phenomenal rock climber, very strong. Andy, one of my best friends, Ricky, I'm surrounded by people that's what they do. Mm-hmm. And so as a byproduct, that is what you are. Like, if I just fell off the wagon, I would be surrounded with people that are like, dude, what's going on?
Yeah.
And that makes a huge impact for people listening. Look at your family, look at your friends, look at, their goals, their aspirations, what they're made of physically, what they want to do. And you're generally probably going to be pretty close to that. most likely you're not going to be the black swan in that group because it's hard just to survive in that arena mentally for too long. And Ricky knows, he's shaking his head. But it's just easier to be more of what you want to be when everyone around you is near that.
Yeah, that community piece is huge because all three of our stories involved, you found the CrossFit community that just transformed you. I had that group of friends in high school that, I wasn't healthy prior to that. Even if I was skinny, I definitely was not healthy. And that group of friends transformed me. And then Ricky, between like the Army and, obviously that was a huge culture shift for you and everything.
Oh, don't belittle me. I was in the Navy, not the Army.
I'm sorry, my bad. Yes, the Navy, that's right. Like we all found like communities though that kind of, that we immersed ourselves in that supported us to becoming a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, actually thinking about how you guys were talking about that, and I was trying to think about, well, where did I find people, or where did I start getting that mentorship or having people that, that community like you were talking about? And, whenever I was in college, I played a lot of sports. I was always around, athletic individuals, but none of them were really like resistance trainers. Ultimate Frisbee guys aren't technically very big and bulky and muscular. We're very skinny runners generally. And in the Navy, I would say not at OCS, even though some people there, we had like he was going to be a Navy SEAL officer.
Wow.
And he was amazing. Nobody could keep up with that guy.
Yep.
So he blew us all out of the water, but, I learned some stuff from him. And then really when I was on my first ship, I met a guy, his name was Ian Tercero, and he was always naturally very, like fat as a child. And he never liked being called big or anything, but he was like 6 foot something and jacked. So he was big. I mean, I'm sorry to say it. He was big.
Yep.
And,
that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you said he was jacked and
he just always felt, being, kind of probably a body dysmorphia thing. As a child, he was always fat, so he hated being called big.
Yeah.
But I saw him at the, the base gym, and he started teaching me about programming and all the stuff that he was doing. He did a lot of body weight stuff. And I started meeting more people as I worked in the Navy that were also interested in that type of fitness. And as I got that type of, camaraderie and kind of started listening to them and training with those types of people, that's where it started to click on what I needed to do. So whenever I got out of the military, I now had a base knowledge in what I needed to succeed. And I started training with other people, like my friends and stuff, and trying to get them to where I was and to even become better.
Yep, you started to join up with some other people and surround yourself with people that were on the same path as you. That's just such a big key piece. Yeah. And now, going into this talk, I think you, when we were talking about doing this topic today, you wanted to talk about maybe like the best ways to overcome skinny fat. And I'm kind of interested in this because I think you and I might have slightly different perspectives, which is cool because it'll give us a couple options to the listeners. And it's not like a right or wrong. It's we've both managed to achieve success, maybe in different ways, maybe not. I'm not sure, but I think your way of thinking about it has to do with like you tended to divide the process into bulking and cutting, and then like you had mentioned, there's kind of a debate on which should you do first, or should you do them both at the same time, or whatever. Do you have strong opinions on that? Like, do you think that there's a better process than another way of doing things? Like, do you have what you would consider to be the best process for someone who is skinny fat and wants to transform the body over the next year or two?
So I think, again, this really depends on where you are in the process, because you could have already been lifting for a couple years. Even I felt like I had been lifting since I was like 16. I just was doing things wrong. But, there's those things called newbie gains where, if you're completely new to the gym, no matter what you do, if you start moving, you're going to start building muscle versus not having any.
When I was in high school. Yeah.
Right. So you can actually technically in the very beginning stages get away with cutting and technically bulking, and developing muscle. So I'd say if you're completely new, you could probably get away with having like a calorie deficit, but still, working and building muscle in the gym. But I would say for the majority of people that, are, kind of athletic or have been kind of, tinkering with working out or exercise, I think it's very important to kind of be in a small calorie surplus and to really focus on building muscle and I would say hitting muscle groups more frequently during the week versus, the bro split where you only hit it like once a week. I would say stick to your core lifts and do those at least 2 to 3 times a week. And, really develop those core muscles like your thighs, your hamstrings, your chest, your back. Like your back is very important. Your shoulders also very important. You really don't have, I think in the beginning, definitely you don't have to focus on triceps or biceps or calves or anything like that, just because I think they're going to naturally develop as you build these bigger muscle groups.
Mm-hmm.
If you need, if you're going for a competition, all right. Or if you really want, if something starts to lack, then you can start focusing on those.
Right.
Am I digressing?
Because I feel goals, though. Like we're talking about like the goal of, we've got someone who is skinny fat, since that's the topic of the podcast, and they just want to overcome that. So they're not training for a powerlifting or anything or any sort of competition.
Yeah. So I would say in general, just to keep it simple, I would say you should be in a slight calorie surplus and trying to hit those muscle groups a couple times a week.
Okay. All right. I like that you didn't really say that one thing was more important than the other there, as far as the resistance training and building muscle versus the cleaning up your diet in whatever way works best for you, whether it's going low carb or just moving to whole foods or being in a calorie deficit or whatever to lose the body fat percentage. You're kind of like doing both at the same time sort of thing. And that's kind of what I was wondering about, because I've seen people talk about this topic and they wonder whether you should go through a bulking phase and then cut, or whether you should go through a cutting phase, then bulk or whatever. And to me, I don't really think in those terms. To me, it's almost like, having adequate muscle, and I'll say not being like a bodybuilder or a powerlifter or anything, that's fine if you want to do that, but having adequate muscle for health, like there is a certain amount of muscle that you want to have on your body for optimal health, and again, you don't have to be like a super jacked, power lifter or anything, but there's an adequate amount of muscle that you want to have. That's super important for health. And then the other thing is having appropriate body fat percentage. That's also super important for health. You don't want to have a high body fat percentage to the point where you're moving into the overweight and obesity sort of zone, right? So those two things, adequate muscle and adequate healthy lean body fat percentage, are really important for health. So I almost think of it like imagine if someone came up to me and said that they have they have high blood pressure, they have high triglycerides, they have maybe some joint pain, could be like arthritis, or maybe it's like an autoimmune issue. They've got low energy levels and like fatigue. They have to like nap every day. They feel like kind of just low energy all day long. And maybe they have some gut issues too, right? So this person's got a whole bunch of issues, like health issues, health concerns that they're dealing with. If that person came up to me and said, which of these should I deal with first? Like, should I fix my blood pressure first and then fix my gut issues and then fix my triglycerides and then, or whatever? Like, to me, the whole body is connected, and I just want to focus on let's get the body healthy. Like, if you eat a clean diet, which we've talked about in previous episodes, so we won't dive into that too much, but if you eat a clean, healthy diet and you get an appropriate amount of activity and some resistance training in there, I think that's really important too. Then you're going to slowly see all those metrics go in the right direction. You're going to see the blood pressure start to go back to the normal range, your triglycerides go to the normal range, your joint issues might disappear, inflammation might go down, your gut might start to fix itself. Yep. But they all kind of like, if you just focus on health as like your primary goal, those other things kind of all fix themselves, slowly all at the same time. And so like with the whole high body fat percentage and low muscle, I don't really think in terms of like, you want to fix one of those first. I just think adopt a healthy lifestyle of healthy eating and appropriate training, and you can kind of just slowly transform your body to a slightly more muscular, slightly lower body fat percentage over a period of time. That's kind of the way that I look at it, as opposed to segmenting it into like, I'm going to build muscle first and then I'll cut the body fat later, or I'm going to cut the body fat first, then build muscle later, you know? And it sounds like you're kind of on the same page there. You're saying you would focus on both a good, healthy, clean diet and appropriate resistance training, and just slowly transform your body to a overall healthy state, which will not be skinny fat.
Yeah, and people just got to keep in mind that it is a long process. It's not something that you can do in just like a month or 2 months. It's, you know, and it has to be something that you can make as like a lifestyle change. You know, it has to become your life. Otherwise, you could build up as much muscle as you want, but you're just going to build fat over it if you eventually stop. So, yeah, you have to make it something that you want, and you have to enjoy the foods that you're eating and enjoy everything about the whole process. Otherwise, you'll never stick to it.
Sure.
But so I'm wondering, Josh or Andy, whichever, what do you think is a healthy body fat percentage range?
Well, I think, you know, like I look at it as two different things. So like health and elite levels of fitness are two different things. So there's different charts online you can find, but in many cases, the highest level of fitness has the opposite effect when it comes to health. There's a lot of sick or sicker, very fit athletes. And then you can have someone that ranks quite high on the health spectrum that may not be considered too fit or very fit, right? So let's just get that out there. There's an intersection. James Fitzgerald from OPEX Fitness did this chart once with, I think it was with Charles Polkwin actually, where it intersects. You know, you have sick, and then you have super fit, and then fitness goes down as health goes up, and they intersect. And I think that's sort of where we're all trying to find that, right? Like, at least in myself, I'm walking that fine line all the time of like overtraining and, you know, too crazy fit, but then I'm not healthy. And, you know, so when I look at body fat, if you're talking health, for males, I would say, you know, 8 to 14, 12. You know, I think that, you know, somewhat visible abdominals are important, not flexing. It doesn't need to be lean, ripped with veins and, you know, muscle serrations and stuff. But yeah, 8 to 12, I think much over 10, you're getting into no visible abs. And maybe a layer over your muscle that you don't want. I've done a lot of body fat testing on a lot of people. And that's just what I've seen, you know. Now, it's not uncommon. Now, when we talk about, I'll just go off real quick on this, but the old school method with body fat testing would give you a number. They would say, Andy is 8. Well, I test, and people that are certified within that testing process test 9 sites. So you get 9 scores. So you could have someone with a scapula and lat score of 8 and an umbilical, their gut area, at 26. So then you go even farther to say, well, what do those sites mean relative to health? It's called biosig. It's your biosig score. So like if their umbilical is really high, cortisol is generally high. If tricep and pec are high, testosterone's low, or you're not converting it correctly. There's all this science of, people don't really need to understand that. But I guess where I'm going is that, you know, for general health, 8 to 12 is an overall score for all of your sites, I think, in males, and then females higher, you know, 12 on upwards of 22, you know, 24. They definitely don't want to be lower than that 12 or 10. I think that, you get into a lot of issues there, especially reproduction issues. The body is designed to carry higher levels of body fat because you're female and you have babies and your hormones are
And, you know,
different.
speaking of body fat percentage, like I really wish that just like how almost every house in the United States has a scale, which has just caused all sorts of problems for people who just focus on their weight, you know, I really wish, and now a lot of scales have like a built-in, it'll tell you your body fat percentage, but they're not very accurate. I really wish that every house had some sort of really accurate way of measuring body fat percentage, like just something that you could stand on or just like scan your body or something like that. I mean, God knows, probably in about 5 years, there's going to be an app for this. But in any case, I wish everyone could just like scan their body at home quick and conveniently every day to know what their body fat percentage is, because that's such a more useful gauge of if your body has the proper composition, you know, than just looking at your weight. And then people could shoot for, like Josh said, the targets of, you know, if you're a guy, maybe like whatever, 10% body fat, call that like nice and healthy, you know, even 12 or so, whatever. You know, for a woman could shoot for like whatever, 18% or something like that, 20%, you know? And that gives you a much better idea of like, because so many times people might lose weight on the scale and think they're going in the right direction, but perhaps if they were measuring their body fat percentage, their body fat percentage actually went up in that time because they lost muscle, you know, or, you know, sometimes they do all the right things in their training and their nutrition and stuff, but they step on the scale and they get discouraged because they see they've gained 5 pounds. But if they could measure their body fat percentage, they'd see, oh, my body fat percentage actually went down, you know, because they gained, their weight went up because they gained some muscle, but they lost body fat. So they actually became healthier. It's a shame that more people don't have access to that. You know, I'm not a huge fan of people stepping on the scale every day if they don't understand that concept, because it can take them in the wrong direction. But I would love it if everyone could step on a body fat percentage analyzer every day and use that to gauge, am I going in the right direction? You know?
Absolutely true. The scale is a wrecker.
And by the way, this is like one of the biggest problems with skinny fat, is that this is what makes skinny fat so insidious. Is it's actually a pretty unhealthy condition for a lot of reasons that we could talk about if we want, but a lot of people don't perceive themselves as unhealthy because the only thing they go by is the weight on the scale. So we'll have like, you know, let's say a female who's, you know, 110 pounds and she steps on the scale and she's like 110, that's awesome, I'm so light, you know, and my whatever. And so they think they're doing so well, and that prevents them from making changes that they really need to make because they're actually unhealthy. Whereas if that scale told them their body fat percentage, that same female, 110 pounds, might step on the scale and see that she's 26% body fat. And that would be the indicator that, oh, I have something to work on here. You know, I'm actually not in an ideal body composition as far as health is concerned. And I need to make some changes.
And I think that would open up people's eyes, because these numbers that we're throwing out are leaner than you think. It's even for, you know, we say a female at 20%.
That's lean.
That's lean. Like, and you would see that person at a beach or somewhere and be like, oh, that person works out. In most cases, you would say that person looks reasonably fit, right? You might take a female that's 16 to 18 and you're going to say they're jacked, right? Or they're ripped. You know, same thing with a guy. You get guys under 10, they're going to be noticeable in terms of their aesthetics in most cases. It's leaner than you think.
That's why I wanted to bring this up, for this exact reason, because one, it gives people a target to try to get to, you know, to be in that healthy fat range. But I think what I really wanted to do was bring the awareness is that you should be more aware of your body fat than what it says on a scale.
Yeah, that's it. And that's a phenomenal takeaway there. And the other thing I think too, to add to the body fat percentage, is how are you feeling? Like the common sense stuff, energy, sleep, hormones, strength, You know, how are your clothes fitting? Like you can go on and on and on. We have so many people here that say, oh, I haven't lost a pound, but I went down 3 pant sizes. Wow.
Yep.
Someone's built a lot of muscle and burnt a lot of fat and
Yep.
averaged out, but you look a hell of a lot different. You feel a hell of a lot different and you're happier.
Yep.
So what
Yep.
more can you ask for?
Right.
You know? Yeah. Cool. I don't know, guys. Anything else? Maybe that's a good place to wrap that up. We're an hour in. What do you think?
I'm trying to think if I have anything else to add to this. Boy, yeah, I guess we covered it all. I was thinking a little bit in terms of like different populations, you know, different age groups and stuff, and whether nutrition or resistance training is more difficult or anything at different age groups and stuff. Maybe that's not something we really need to talk about, but.
Well, one thing, Andy, I'll throw in there because it comes to mind quick is as we age, we atrophy.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going with this. Is one thing is it's a little bit harder to overcome skinny fat when you're at a more advanced age. You know, when you're younger, you have a hormonal profile that's going to make it a lot easier to put on muscle, and that's going to make it in turn a lot easier to burn body fat and stuff too. So maybe I just wanted to touch on that. For younger people trying to overcome the whole skinny fat thing, like I said, I was skinny fat when I was 17, and then 18 years old, I hit the weight room and I pretty much overcame it in probably like 3 or 4 months, you know. That's a really ideal time to be training. Your body is going to really work with you at that point. If someone is listening to this and they're, let's say, 45 or 50 years old, and they say, you know what, I think I am skinny fat. Like I have this issue. I don't have much muscle. I'm not very strong. I'm kind of got a squishy body type. You know, I can tell that I need to lose some body fat. It's not going to be the 3-month process that it was for me as an 18-year-old. It's probably going to be a longer and slightly more difficult, you know, 3-year process, or who knows what, you know, like maybe 1 year if you're super disciplined, maybe 3 to 5 years if you're not so disciplined, and genetics are going to play a role and stuff. But, you know, just that it's we're all focusing on the same things, the healthy eating and the resistance training and stuff, and trying to get more steps in and all the healthy lifestyle things that Josh talked about with sleep and stress and all that. But the farther along you are down this path, and the more advanced you are in age, the more time it's going to take to overcome this condition. You know?
Yeah, like, because what you said, you know, you were, you know, let's say 17, and that's like prime time in order to get back in shape.
Sure. Yeah. You just lift the weights and you gain muscle.
Yeah. Like I think
that's not going to happen when I'm 50.
I think men peak at 16 like in those fitness charts. If you ever focus on those fitness things, like those fitness programs in, what is it? I forget what it's called, but in high school, they always had those fitness challenges.
Okay. Yeah.
The numbers for a 16-year-old were always like lower than an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
So like you were supposed to get a faster mile, or you're supposed to get more pull-ups, or you're supposed to get more at 16 than you were 18. So you're kind of like right in that perfect range for that 3 to 4 month that you said it took you to get into the shape that you wanted. But when I was 25, like I told you, it took me around like a year or maybe even over a year to get to where I needed to be.
Yeah. And I guess the takeaway there is for listeners, you can't change your age, you know, like we are whatever we are. If you're 18 years old and listening to this, then hey, good for you. You can make some really quick progress. But the real takeaway is just the sooner you start, the better. You know, don't wait until if you're 20 now, don't wait until you're 25 to start this process. If you're 40 now, don't wait until you're 45 to start the process. You know, the sooner you begin, the better. Should go without saying.
At any age, regardless of, you know, the aesthetic part of it. You know that it's important that you need to strength train and eat a healthy diet. And that should lead to stronger body. Like you can just understand that through your performance. Is weights going up? Are you getting more mobile? Like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, are your clothes fitting different? Are you losing weight or getting leaner, or whatever it is, the metric that you're tracking at any age that can be done. And so, you know, don't, like Andy said, if it was a 3 or 4 month process for a 16-year-old, yeah, so be it. But even if it's a 5-year process for a 65-year-old that's been out of shape for 40 years, you still need to do it.
Yeah. And you know what? No matter how short the process is, it's actually a lifelong process regardless. Because you know what? When I was 17 or 18 and I started finally resistance training and cleaning up my diet and eating healthy, sure, I reversed the skinny fat condition in like 3 to 6 months and I got the body type that I wanted very quickly. But it's not like after that 3 to 6 months, I was just done and I went back to like, you know, eating like a pig and not doing anything. So even though like my body transformed quickly, I've still been doing that same lifestyle for the last 20 years to keep the body that I have. So really, it doesn't even matter anyway. Like, it's nice to get the results quicker. But either way, we're encouraging people to do the right things now and continue doing them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, there's no end point. I feel like when you talk to people, some people on this journey, that they feel like there's a time when you arrive.
And you can just do whatever you want, eat whatever you want, not work out, and just be jacked the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I'll say it's almost the opposite. And for those that have reached high levels of fitness, that's a very hard place to be, because the work needed to maintain that is as hard as it is to get there. And so, you know, if you're really impressed by someone's performance, know that they didn't just arrive and hang out there.
And now they just have it forever. Yeah,
they can go with aesthetics, they can go with fitness, they can go with anything. Like the farther up that spectrum of the performance or looks or whatever it is they go, the harder it is to be that person every day.
Right.
Yeah, because I always say it never gets easier, and these weights never get lighter. They never feel lighter.
No.
Well, you know something, I'll put a slightly positive spin on this. I'll say that I think it does get easier in the sense that habit change is very difficult. Change is hard. Once you've made if you have a really unhealthy diet and you're addicted to sugar and pastries and things and whatever, and you've never trained before and going to the gym intimidates you and so on, like that initial stage is going to be really tough, because you're going to be changing a lot of things and a lot of your habits and stuff, and your life is going to feel a little off from what it used to be for a while, you know. But once you've made those adjustments to a healthier lifestyle and they become habitual, you're right, you never have to stop doing those things, but now they're a part of your life and you feel good doing them and they're a habit. So in that sense, it does get easier. You know, I will say, like, for me, you know, quitting drinking soda and eating fast food when I was a teenager was insanely difficult. That was a really hard change for me to make. But now it's very easy for me to not drink soda and eat fast food, because I just don't do that. I haven't done it in 20 years. I don't even think about that.
And I think that's really well said, because the process, and both of you said this, has to have the mindset of being long-term. Because if you have the mindset of that this is a 90-day or 6-month or 1-year journey, and then you've arrived, then you're not going to stick to what Andy just said, the new habits. But I agree that when you break through the feeling great, seeing results, that's your lifestyle, that's your friends, whatever, you have arrived from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to like focus on doing things that are sustainable for your whole life. You know, you don't want to do some crash diet where you're only drinking like celery juice 3 times a day, or like whatever the latest fad is, because even if you can get some results doing that, you know, over the course of a month or something, you're not going to keep doing that your whole life. So you got to make the changes that you're going to stick with for for the whole rest of your life, you know?
Now, we also mentioned, you know, that it's more important to analyze body fat over just what it says on a scale. Do you have any tips for, I guess, maybe something that people have at home already that they could try to, I don't know, measure their own body fat at home?
I don't. Aside from like the digital scales that give you like an estimation of your body fat, which they fluctuate quite a bit. But I mean, that's at least it's an estimation. And Josh already mentioned calipers, which most people don't have, and usually you need a partner to take those measurements on you anyway.
Right.
So you'd have to like go to like a gym, you know, with a trainer who can do that for you. but for me, I think probably the best indicator of your body fat percentage is really just looking in the mirror and kind of saying, do I have some muscle definition? Like Josh said, you don't need to be ripped. You don't need to have 6-pack abs and see like, striations in all your muscles. But, if you're like, let's say if you're a guy, for example, if you're standing in decent lighting and turned the right way, can you kind of make out a little bit of an outline of some abdominal muscles? If so, then you're probably kind of in the range of being fairly healthy as far as body fat percentage goes. But if you like, even in like the best lighting and like with the best mirror in your house, in like flexing your abs, and it's still just like, your stomach is kind of like covered in a layer of subcutaneous fat and there's no visible musculature at all on your body, then like that mirror test is probably the easiest way for people at home to gauge if they're in a healthy body fat percentage.
Yeah, and I can say,
a quick, easy way.
I can say, and maybe you disagree, but like if someone is obviously overweight, okay, like we're saying 30 pounds, 40, 50, the scale, we know they would need to lose that, right? Yep. So the scale, like if you fall into that category and you're 220 and you should be 180, and the chances of you putting 40 pounds of muscle on and burning 40 pounds of fat are low.
Right.
So you do need to lose some weight. But the topic that we're talking of today is the skinny fat. And
so like if we're talking about the topic of obesity, that's far easier to gauge just based on like scale weight, or I mean, obviously even looking in the mirror, you can, if you're in the category of obese. But skinny fat is sometimes a little harder for people. People think that they're healthy because they're skinny, and it's a little harder for them to figure out like what their body fat percentage is. And that's where I think the mirror check is definitely probably the most convenient thing that people can do at home, the average person.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the mirror check is a good one. What do you guys feel about like the tape, like using like what like a seamstress would use? What is it called? Like a measuring tape type thing?
Oh, I've never done that.
Yeah, you can measure like your neck circumference, your arm circumference, your waist circumference.
Well, what I will say is one of the best indicators of metabolic health, actually this ties right in with skinny fat, because skinny fat people tend to they have more visceral fat, as you said. They don't have much subcutaneous fat. There's not a bunch of flab on their arms. There's not a bunch of flab on their legs. And that's why they, wearing a sleeveless shirt, they have skinny arms. And so people think, oh, you're really healthy, but they have more of that abdominal fat, that inner abdominal obesity in and around their organs. That's what visceral fat is. And one of the best indicators of your metabolic health and whether you've got some of this visceral fat developing is your waist to hip ratio. And that's where that measuring tape would come in. You measure your waist rate, your waist circumference, and you measure your hip circumference. And I don't know what the exact measurements are, but that can easily be Googled, like ideal waist to hip ratio for men and women is going to be different. But that's actually a better indicator of your metabolic health than your scale weight is, and a better indicator of possibly your body fat percentage, but certainly your metabolic health. If your waist to hip ratio is off, meaning that your waist is bigger around than it should be for how big around your hips are, then you've got some abdominal fat that's collecting inside your abdominal cavity, which is the most unhealthy type of fat that there is.
Yep. And
so that's where that measuring tape comes in handy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'll tag on that with the body fat testing out of the 9 sites that I do. I think the number 1 site for overall health is the umbilical.
Yep.
And so for people listening, guy or girl, if you want to do a quick test with your fingers, it's called a sweep and pinch. You go to your belly button, you go an inch down, and then you go either to the left or right of that 1 inch. Find that spot with your fingers, your thumb and your index finger, push in and find the base level of muscle. And then you sweep it away. And then what you're holding there, and this is obviously a very rough way to do this, but if you're good at it, you can get it. It gives you a very good indication. Like, there have the group of people that there's nothing, like you can't find You cannot find the base muscle, and that gives you an idea. Then there's others that'll find the base, and that sweep is a large chunk. And then you work down from that chunk, but find the umbilical an inch below to the left or right, find the muscle, push till you hit it, sweep away, and hold that chunk right there between your index. And that's where the caliper would come in. We would pinch that, shake very lightly to get anything out of, anything that's loose within the springs. And that's your score right there.
And basically all you're doing there is you're just sampling how much fat you have sitting over your abdomen.
Yeah.
And you can just reach in with your fingers and thumb, like you said, and just pinch that and be like, okay, that's how much fat I have on my abdomen.
Yep.
And if, you can check that as often as you want to, but like, as long as you can see that the amount that you can pinch there going down over the period of months and years, then you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, and you can do this a few different other spots. Again, this is rough without calipers, but on your tricep. So you have your tricep and you have your tricep muscle right above that, where that V comes to a top, or for some people it'd be maybe 4 inches down from your deltoid. You relax that arm and you sweep in, find the muscle, and pull away. Okay, and that's for the tricep. And same thing with the pec. Nipple, 1 inch to the, well, it would be right or left, depending. Sweep and pinch. There's the base, sweep and pinch. And you get a very, very quick indication of like, there's nothing there. There is there, but there's a good chunk, and then there's paper there or something in between, So.
All right. Think we did it?
Yeah.
I think so.
Little
Cool.
long, but
Good talk. No, that's fine. It was a good talk.
Great talk, guys. Thank you. Ricky, you're good with that?
I think I'm good.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We're going to be having some guests on here soon. We're reaching out to a bunch of people now. We're going to be moving forward with some very interesting conversations, which we're excited to share with you. If you're looking to submit questions, send them over to info@co-movement.com. Interested in becoming a client, remote or in person, website co-movement.com. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, the whole deal. And we'll go from there and move forward. So thanks, guys. Ricky, Andy, have a good day, okay?
You too,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks. You too.
All right, bye.